About 3 years ago, I encountered what I can only explain then as a deformed hyena. It was in the later part of the day, under dusky conditions, and I was small game hunting at the time. I did not feel any fear because I was carrying my over-under shotgun at this time. Its eyes were kind of strange, and I remember it had very pointy ears. Its head was almost cartoon-like, as its snout had messed up overgrown hair. Its fangs looked unusually long too. For some time before I seen it, I heard a very, very long coughing noise, like a cat coughing up a fur ball. However, this went on for a long time, so whatever did it had strong and large lung capacity. I doubt a lynx or cat could have been the noisemaker. I have no idea if this dog-like creature was the source of this strange and long coughing fit. Another strange thing along this trail, I always seem to be under the watchful eyes of a high-flying turkey vulture. Now, these are newcomers to Alberta, but a few mating pairs have been reported up here, and this is common local knowledge that no one questions. This coughing bout I heard at least once before in this specific area. Never seen the source in the nearby dense boreal forest. This wooded area is kind of on the edge of an oil exploration and is an active work area now, so I don't hunt there anymore. Which is too bad as it's chock full of small game such as rabbits and grouse. During this encounter, the woods were unnaturally quiet. It's hard to move in many areas off trail because the evergreen limbs reach so far close to the ground, an upright person would be stooped over to move at any kind of speed in many areas. Quadrupeds have a definite advantage here over people, and the area is also ringed with swamps and marshy, very uneven ground that one could easily turn your ankle on. There were other strange moments then. I think when I did see this animal, I sat down on a large rock with my gun across my lap and caught the first glimpse as it was circling me. I think to catch my scent on the wind. I just caught a glimpse of it, passing behind a tree in the dusky light conditions. It had hocks like a dog, but as it came around the tree, still on all four legs, I noticed the front legs were longer than the back legs. Its back bowed upward, and I got the distinct impression its frontal back, chest, and leg muscles were much more pronounced and muscular than its back legs. I believe the front coat was lighter too in color with some reddish tones. It looked like a hyena loose in North America to my own eyes. It was not a black bear. I'm very, very familiar with bears. It was canine-like, but not any canine I have ever seen before since. My brother, who was not there, found a near-perfect picture of another critter online on another crypto site. The picture was said to be taken very near the Wisconsin River. In the picture, it looked like it was on farmland, corral, or fence line, in the early spring because of white and light snow cover. Was near the twin to what I saw that fall evening in Alberta. I came across another report of a bipedal canine. I was at a sportsman show here in Alberta and had been talking about Sasquatch with a group of people. After the discussion was over, a young woman approached me and said that her father had seen a werewolf on their farm in the mid-1990s. She said that he was there at the show and she wondered if I would talk with him. I was more than happy to, as reports of bipedal canines are far and few in between here in Alberta. I was introduced to the father, who was less than happy that his daughter had told a complete stranger about his sighting of a creature that isn't supposed to exist. But, after I told him who I was and what I did, he seemed relieved that I wasn't going to ridicule him. We went outside and sat at a picnic table, and he related the occurrence to me. He raises, boards, and breeds horses for a living. One night, in an early August of 1996, the witness was awoken by the sounds of panicked horses. He said that they sounded as if they were being or were going to be attacked by something. He grabbed a 250,000 candle power spotlight and a 20-gauge shotgun and headed out towards the sounds. It should also be noted that his dog refused to leave the house with him. This was very unusual, as the dog is trained for running off animals that may attempt to harm the horses. As he approached a corral where several Shetland ponies were being kept, he spotted movement. He clicked on his spotlight and played the beam over the area. When the beam passed over a corner section of the corral, he spotted what he thought was a large timber wolf. This surprised him, as he had never had problems with wolves before. Still, this wolf was making itself a problem. So he shouted, "Hey, ha! Get the hell out of here!" What happened next shocked and stunned him. The wolf spun towards him and stood up on its hind legs. He estimated that the creature's height was between 6.5 to 7 feet tall. The color was jet black, and the eyeshine was said to be greenish yellow. He immediately pointed the shotgun at it and pulled back both hammers. When he did this, the creature began to emit a growling sound, vocalization that the witness described as a steady and somewhat guttural growling. He remembers whispering to myself, "Oh my God, this isn't possible," over and over again. As he was doing this, the creature started to go into a crouch. The witness took this to mean that the creature was going to lunge at him, so he fired the shotgun in its direction. The creature dropped onto all fours and bolted, faster than he thought possible for any animal to move in the forest. After the creature moved out of view, the witness began to get a very uncomfortable feeling, like he was being watched. What he described as an unreasonable fear came over him, and he fled towards his home as fast as he could move. He considered calling the police, but soon canceled that thought. What the hell would he tell them? That he had just fired at a werewolf? No, he kept this to himself, only telling his daughter when she was in her late teens. I asked the witness if he thought he hit the creature with the shotgun blast. He believes that he did, but the damage would have been minimal, as he was using a number 7 birdshot. The worst may have happened was that the pellets caused it stinging pain. The duration of the sighting was estimated to be between 47 seconds and 1 minute. The distance from the witness to the creature was estimated to be between 40 to 50 yards. The witness only ever told me his first name, Lloyd. He also mentioned that if I ever use this report online or elsewhere, to change his first name to something else. The headache this would cause him in a small community is something he wishes to avoid. I received a report about an unusual wolf-like creature from a fellow this past summer. He was hiking the Mount Baldy Trail here in Alberta when the encounter occurred. The behavior of the animal was also extremely unwolf-like. It was unresponsive and unafraid of things that a wild animal would normally be afraid of. Anyway, here's the report as I received it. I managed to get a few days off work, so I decided to hit some of the trails to do some hiking and exploring. I chose the trails around Mount Baldy because I had been there many times before and knew them well. I was carrying a canteen of water, a small backpack containing a small first aid kit, a couple of well-wrapped packaged snack bars, a small emergency survival kit, and my digital camera. I was also carrying a .410 single shotgun, which I take with me on all my hikes and camping trips. I was about half of the way to Mount Baldy Base Trailhead when I was surprised by a very large wolf that just walked out onto the trail and stood there blocking my way. At first, I was concerned because this creature was quite bigger than any timber wolf that I had ever seen, captive or wild. But the creature seemed content to simply stand there and stare at me. I spoke to it, and it didn't show that it had even heard the sound. No raising of the ears, no lifting its head in curiosity. I yelled at it to get out of the way, and it still did nothing. I began to feel uncomfortable, so I started to back away. But the creature then came towards me. I stopped, and so did it. I then took the shotgun off my shoulder and fired it into the air. Once again, the creature did not seem to care. All it did was glance at the weapon, and then right back at me again. By this time, I had the nagging feeling in my head that this was not an ordinary wolf. It just did not behave like a wild animal. So I reached back into my backpack and I removed my digital camera. This was the only thing that seemed to cause it to waver in its behavior, for as I raised the camera to take a picture of it, it darted off into the woods. I took this moment to beat a retreat back down the trail towards a more open area. This next part may make you disbelieve the entire account, but I'm going to say it regardless. When I looked back up at the trail, the creature was standing right next to a large pine tree, but it was standing on its back legs. I suppose it could have been using the tree for support, but it didn't look like it. I raised the camera once more, and it disappeared back into the woods. Now, what kind of wild animal is more afraid of a camera than a gun? This is why I don't believe I was dealing with an ordinary wolf. I may even go so far as to say it fringed on the paranormal. Needless to say, I will not be hiking those trails again, armed or not. I know that you are a Sasquatch researcher. In this report, a husband and a wife were out cross-country skiing. They had just crossed a remote country road and were about to ski across a field. On the other side of this field, they spotted an extremely large wolf standing just inside of the tree line. The wife said she felt uncomfortable as the creature was staring right at them and following their movement. Her husband was carrying a .22 rifle on his back, on its sling. He brought the rifle down, chambered a cartridge, and fired into the ground in front of the creature. She said that the creature looked at the ground, then back at them, and began to growl. She said that the growl went up and down in sound, and it was very deep and menacing. She said that her husband shouldered his rifle again, but did not fire. What really gave her the chills was the look on the creature's face. She felt that the creature knew that the rifle was small caliber and was not something that could kill it with one shot. Moments later, her husband fired again, this time into a tree that was next to the creature. The creature didn't even flinch, but what it did next made both of them flee in terror. About 30 seconds after the second shot, the creature stood up on two legs. One of its front legs was against the tree that her husband shot. The growling continued, but it had increased in volume by quite a bit, and the creature was moving its jaws up and down like it was gnashing its teeth. Her husband fired 3 shots directly at the creature, all 3 hitting it in the chest. The creature let out a drawn-out scream and ran off into the forest on 2 legs. They fled the other way back towards their vehicle, and as they were skiing back, they had to pass through a small area of the forest. And as they were passing through the forest, they could hear something running towards them from a distance through the woods. They cleared the woods without anything happening, but when they broke out of the forest, they estimated that whatever was chasing them was no more than 40 yards behind them. She had her cell phone with her and was thinking about using it to take a picture of the creature. As she was thinking this, she suddenly got a feeling that if she took a photograph, the creature would kill them both. She said that the feeling was so strong that she immediately shoved the phone in her pocket. It wasn't as if the creature had sent her a psychic message or anything. It was just a feeling. One thing she mentioned in a hushed, embarrassed voice. When her husband and her made it back to their vehicle, she noticed that she had actually peed her pants. She didn't even notice until the adrenaline rush ended. She had actually been so scared that she lost control of her bladder. She always thought that that was just something from the movies, and you can never actually ever be that scared. I am a sales rep for the Ohio, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania region, with an office in Canton, Ohio. Being a city boy, it is often intriguing and interesting to be out and about in the country. With my job, I often find myself in new places and always seeing things I never thought I would. That is, until Tuesday, November 23rd. This day I found myself following my GPS down a dirt road in Lisbon, Ohio, listening to the local radio station out in Akron ranting about the election. I suddenly caught a man in a black fur coat running across a field. First about 10 feet away, and then what seemed to be a flash. He was already halfway across the land. Before I had time to realize this was not normal. I slammed on the brakes and grabbed my phone to take a photo, but I hadn't enough time to fire off a good shot. This thing was at least 7 feet tall and fast as hell. Black, and I noticed what I later thought must have been long, pearly white teeth in a row as it ran. I do remember 2 distinct ears high on its head. It was for sure on 2 legs, but appeared to be a giant dog man of sorts. Myself, along with 4 other guys, decided to go park on Anthony Road and walk out to the middle of a field to drink some beer. We lived in a small town and not much to do. Keep in mind, however, that we hadn't yet started drinking, and even if we had, I don't think it would cause a group hallucination. The reason we had guns was due to an incident prior to this, where my female cousin and her friends, whom were all about 5 years younger than us, came back to my aunt's house one night. They were really scared and said they were driving down Anthony Road, and a guy was lying in the middle of the road, so they had to stop the car. It's a narrow road, so they couldn't turn around, and so they put the car in reverse to back up. Just then, the guy in the road jumped up and started chasing the car, and people came out of the cornfields and tried to open the car doors, and trying to stop the car. They took off and drive and came back to the house and told us what happened, hence the presence of guns in the night of our encounter. The night of our encounter was a very bright moon. It was a full moon, or at least near full, shone down on some pretty thick fog that was about shin high, so visibility was quite high. We drove up and down the road one time just to make sure no cops were parked on the road anywhere. Then, we spotted the field we wanted to go into. It was really cool looking with the fog laying heavy on the ground, and the moon bouncing off of it, giving it a really cool glow effect. We parked the cars and began to venture into the field in the area of the tractors would enter. We walked about maybe 20 or 30 yards in, and stopped to listen for cars coming, and also just to listen to the woods to make sure no one else was around. One of us noticed something large and dark along the woodline to our right, about 150 yards out into the field. We all stopped talking and watched it for a few moments, trying to determine what it was, whether it be a tree stump, a large rock, or maybe a bush. After a few minutes, we decided it was just a big bush and stopped paying attention to it and walked further into the field. After going into the field a little more, one of us noticed the object wasn't there where we had seen it before. We began to scan the area to see where it went, and then we noticed something running from right to left across the field in front of us. It looked to be about 3 feet above the fog line, if not maybe 4 feet, so that would make it bigger than any dog. The mechanics of how it ran reminded me of a cheetah or even a greyhound, reaching out with long forelimbs to grab the ground and then hurling its hind haunches under itself to spring forward yet again. Its silhouette looked like a wild boar or hyena. It had the stereotypical large hump on its upper back. It ran really fast to the center of the field and then turned directly towards us. I've never seen anything able to cut a different direction as fast as this thing did, especially considering how fast it was traveling. At first, we thought it had stopped running, but then after a second, we were able to tell it was now coming straight at us. We were all asking and commenting with each other, trying to reason what it was. Dog? Cougar? Bear? As it continued its charge, we raised guns at it. I had a shotgun and 2 of the other guys had pistols. When we raised our guns, it began to zigzag. I remember thinking that it knew what guns were. I remember saying, or one of us said, that this thing knows we are pointing guns at it. I think that's when we got creeped out enough to run for the cars. My buddy said he didn't shoot because he couldn't identify the target. I personally, and I'm not ashamed to say this, think it is because we all got scared because we knew it wasn't any known animal. It was moving so fast that I thought if I miss or if my first shot doesn't stop it, I won't get a second shot in. Shotguns are only good within certain distances, and I didn't want it getting that close to me. As we were running away, my friend at the time fell into a groundhog hole, so I had to run back and help him up so we can get to the car. Given how fast it was running, I don't think it was really trying to catch us, or it would have. When we got to the cars and took off, I recall looking out the side window, and this thing was chasing the car. Once we got over the little bridge on Anthony onto Manning Road, we were able to get up to more speed. I don't think it ever came out of the field or crossed the bridge, however. It's as if it just wanted to chase us off. It never stood up on 2 legs, and I didn't notice any eye shine. I think it may have been too far away when it started to charge to see any eyes. I can tell you that it was bigger than any dog and much, much faster. It was able to zigzag really fast, like a rabbit would. It was also very jerky in its side-to-side movement, almost twitchy, I'd say. I got the feeling that it was so quick and agile that I might not be able to get a beat on it to get good hits in on it with the shotgun. As we were pulling away in the car is probably when I got the best look at it. It had odd body mechanics as it ran. It reminded me of a cheetah, and I could tell the forelimbs were longer than the hind limbs. I couldn't see a tail or the shape of the ears, however. I am so frightened right now, and it's hard to put these words down. I had to take a quick break. My encounter may seem mild compared to others, but it still physically shakes me to my core. On a hot summer night in August of '92, me and my mom and my dad and 2 of my brothers decided we would get a Papa John's pizza and head to the Dixie Twin Drive-In movie theater. The 21st of every month was our payday family ritual. I have another older brother, but he had moved out. After finishing our pizza and movies, we headed out. But Dad decided to take a drive, so he detoured to another part of town. We ended up on Shiloh Springs Road, in what you would call Trotwood, Ohio, which is a suburb of Dayton. As we cruised along, enjoying our latest night ride, we noticed that there were no other cars in front or behind us. It was all of a sudden that an eerie and dead silence crept up on us. As my dad drove up the road, he looked out a little more and was looking out the rear window, and I heard him say, "What the fuck?" I turned around to look out the front windshield, and I was in horror, astonished, paralyzed. There aren't enough terrible words to describe the level of fear we were going through. He slowed to a complete stop, but the headlights on our '79 Buick had caught this tall, gray, stringy-haired thing with pointed ears and some kind of muzzle, and a yellow sort of glowing, piercing eyes that made me feel like an ant. I have never felt so inferior in all my life. He crossed the 2-lane road and disappeared into the woods. 3 steps and he was gone. But not before looking through us like he wanted us to die. I felt pure hatred coming from this beast. He was mad at us for looking at him, for discovering him. I keep saying, but I honestly didn't see genitals. I guess I just felt that it was a male. He could have smashed through our car and destroyed our entire family if he wanted to. I've seen my beloved dad scared twice in his life, and both times it was because he felt his death was coming. May he be resting in peace. This thing had a face, and not just an animal face. It was like he was smart. He was walking, and he owned us for those few moments. Finally, my mom said, "Ronnie, go!" and he sped off. I cried for a few minutes, but after that, something strange happened. It was like all 5 of us were entranced. We were on some kind of autopilot. We went home, we went to bed and totally blocked the incident out, like he put some kind of spell on us. We never even spoke of it again. But after I became a mother and a wife, my husband and I were talking about Bigfoot, and I sat up and my memory snapped and I said, "Brandon, I think I saw Bigfoot." And I told him the story, and he quickly, meanderingly said, "No, you didn't see Bigfoot. You saw a werewolf." I will never go camping or enter a forest or woods of any kind, nor do I allow my children to do the same thing. That thing that I encountered had supernatural powers, and it let us know with his eyes that we were nothing, and he would kill us in a second. This was 26 years ago, and I still am overcome with emotion and fear. I just wanted to share in hopes that it would make me feel better, and maybe a weight would be lifted. I doubt it will, though. Thank you so much for anyone who takes the time to hear my experience.